I told my ex-husband my concerns about his girlfriend. My ex-husband and I are in our early 40s and late 30s and have been divorced for almost 3 years now. While he did not want to get divorced, we separated and have been co-parenting our two preteens amicably. He lives within 5 blocks from our old home, and while we have 55/50ths custody, our kids freely bounce between our places and choose how they want to spend holidays. We've tried hard to create a sense of stability despite the change in our family situation and outstanding tune-up therapy twice a year to make sure we're all comfortable with the arrangements. His recent partner, Maria, 29, female, has been the only one to make past the 6-month mark, and prior to this encounter, I would say that she makes him happy and is a pretty reasonable lady. She also has a very sweet and precocious 9-year-old son that we all adore, and generally, I thought things were going well. I invited Maria to bring her son to my place if she would like him to join my kids in private language classes. She accepted, and this has been going on for a few weeks now, and my kids adore him. Then, last week, she said something to me that was surprising. She asked me when I would be moving my things out so that my ass and her could be able to cohabitate. I was taken aback and confused, asking her to clarify my current home, this home, and she nonchalantly told me, "You don't need all the space for 3 people. We wouldn't have space at this current condo." Her son looked so awful and embarrassed at this point that I was like, this conversation would need to include my ex. I live in a brownstone that my ex and I purchased together, 55/50ths, but that I have been renovating since before the divorce. My ex lives in a nice condo that's spacious, but is still a little bit of a man cave. Later in the evening, I got a text message from her son that was pleading for me to forgive his mom, that he's sorry for his mom, and to not tell my ex. I feel awful, but I think I should let my ex know this conversation occurred and let him handle it. Would I be the a-hole if I told my ex-husband my concerns about his girlfriend? Edit. I'm the single owner of the house. My ex insisted throughout the divorce that I keep it. We do co-owner the condo, though. Haha. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Why would you be co-owner of his condo, and why did you laugh after saying that? This whole thing does not add up. X may not be able to qualify to refinance the condo in just his name. OP was probably laughing because the girlfriend thinks owns both homes, and the girlfriend can throw OP out at her whim when this is not the case. Before our divorce, we owned both properties outright. After the divorce, he insisted I keep the brownstone. I had my lawyer help me transfer the brownstone. Needed at my excited documents, he just never did that with the condo. I asked him a few times, and the answer has always been hand-wavy. I'm his ex-wife, so I'm not going to continue nagging him on something he's dragging his feet on. Not the a-hole. Your ex-husband should be the one having that conversation, so you absolutely need to share this with him. Weird that the 9-year-old has a better emotional gauge than his mom, though. He's a special kid, in the best way, very mature and advanced for his age. I was very mature for my age, and it stemmed from trauma, as did my understanding of situations, both social and emotional, that should have been outside of my scope. I'm not saying that this kid is definitely traumatized, just that I've never met a former gifted kid that wasn't in some way. You would not be the a-hole, and I'm alarmed that a 9-year-old is already conditioned to apologize for his mother's behavior. I suspect the girlfriend used her son's phone to manipulate the situation. I doubt this because the girlfriend was embarrassed, and it was the son who reacted like this. I think this is just a very smart little kid with a high IQ who has had to navigate the world with a parent who isn't nearly as savvy. Not the a-hole. It sounds like this needs to be discussed, not necessarily because of her, but because it's obviously come up in their discussions. If you are divorced and still have shared property, I think that's what this says, then you will need to sort that out sooner than later. She wouldn't really be the issue. The ownership of the property is the issue, and it sounds like he's thinking about that if she brought it up. The thing is, I don't think it's been discussed between them at all. I think she may have just assumed when we separated. He insisted that I keep the house, and that I didn't need to buy him out. The house belonging to me is ironclad. I just got nervous and blurted out that we discussed it because her son was there. Now, for the update. Update 1. First off, some people ask why I laughed, haha, at the end of my added that I would have his condo. It was mainly out of uncomfortable irony. He's extremely driven and brilliant in his career but disorganized in life. As for the update, I procrastinated bringing up what Maria said and basically told myself as her best intentions. My thought process was that it's my home, and she'll have to cart me out of here on the back of a hearse. I admit I was also nervous about rigging on his happiness and did not want to be perceived as a bitter ex. The kids had a grand time at camp, and a month or so ago, later we had a family dinner with both sets of grandparents. My ex brought Maria, and it started out great. Everyone welcomed Maria and her son. Maria was helping me finish up desserts in the kitchen, and I was patting myself on the back for the good level blended family dynamic when she made an off-the-cuff comment about how she'd hosted parties here. Next came in with the kids, overheard and asked, "Oh, did Low Stakes offer for you to host Maria's son?" He just burst into tears and started apologizing. It was genuinely one of the most awkward experiences of my life. Long story short, the entire family has learned that my ex had a vasectomy after the divorce and is not looking to remarry anytime soon. Afterwards, I talked to him about a previous interaction, along with showing him 2 text messages, and now they are no longer together. I am worried about Maria's son, although I recognize it's not my place, and I'm sure what I can do. There, now for the top comments before reading the update. Poor OP and ex-Jesus, I cannot imagine what was going through the girlfriend's head. She thought she'd be the new wife, and he'd move his new family into a bigger place. So bizarre, as it doesn't even sound like the younger and new girlfriend had OP's ex-hubby even had any conversations about cohabitating at all, never mind cohabitate. The reaction from our kid being so immediate and so extreme makes me think that is a pattern. Honestly, it made me suspect it had been discussed between them, and the ex-husband had said no. And that's why Maria tried to go behind his back, and the kid was so upset by it. But even without that, the kid's reaction is hugely telling of something. I feel so bad for the kid. It feels like he was settling into an environment and schedule where he got to do new stuff and see good people on a regular basis. OP described her children loving him, and now it's all going to get taken away again. Not to mention, I feel like it can be a warning sign when very young children are described as being super mature and understanding for their age. I was that way growing up, but only because of emotional mistreatment and neglect and parentification by the adults in my life. At a long term, it actually stunts you emotionally because you're still constantly trying to read the moods of other people and accommodating for what they want. You learn to ignore your own needs and never get to explore who you are as a person in one of the most important developmental phases of your life. And one gets the sense Maria was looking to hit the jackpot. Also, it stands out to me that her son is so mature. According to OP, kids grow up fast when they have an irresponsible parent. He was apologizing like she was his child, acting a fool. Yes, and fortunately, kids do grow up fast when they have irresponsible parents. I personally know this for a fact. I feel for the little boy, also. Unfortunately, the ability to be mature for your age and having to parent your own parents does not translate you into a mature, functional adult most of the time. My own kids' maturity is complex trauma, molding them into still quiet, vigilant people who know best when not to do anything. Knowing how to avoid triggering your emotionally immature parents does not make you a good romantic partner, say, or help you understand your own feelings to decide what you want. I'm not saying this dump on a kid, but to empathize. I was also a bright, mature kid. What that actually meant was I still at school, think my adult life had been fulfilling due to this great ability. Update 2. After Maria and my ex split up, things have been somewhat quieter, but the situation didn't simply resolve without any lingering effects, especially concerning Maria's son. First, I'd like to express my gratitude for the supportive messages and advice I received from many of you. It was invaluable and gave me the courage to handle this delicate situation as best as I could. In the weeks following the breakup, I've been reflecting on the impact of our family dynamics and how they affect everyone involved, not just us adults. My ex-husband was understandably upset about the turn of events after our conversation where I relayed what had transpired and showed him the text from Maria's son. He took some time to process everything before deciding to end the relationship with Maria. He realized that while he cared for her, the boundaries around our family and home needed to be respected, something Maria struggled with. My primary concern throughout this has been the children, particularly Maria's son, who found himself in a heartbreaking position. He's a sensitive child, and the disruption has clearly affected him. Seeing his distress at our family dinner was a poignant reminder of how adult decisions and conversations can significantly impact the younger ones caught in the crossfire. With this in mind, I reached out to Maria, not to discuss her relationship with my ex, but to express my concern for her son. I suggested, as delicately as I could, that perhaps some counseling might help him navigate his feelings about all the changes in his life. Maria was initially defensive, but I think she understood my concerns were genuine and about her son's well-being, not a critique of her parenting. She eventually opened up and shared that she's been struggling with the adjustment too, and that her actions were not meant to be as intrusive as they came across. She appreciated the suggestion and decided to look into counseling for both her and her son to help them through this transition. As for my relationship with my ex, we've managed to maintain our amicable co-parenting setup. This situation brought some strain, of course, but it also opened up new conversations about how we manage our boundaries and interactions with future partners. We agreed that more transparency and communication are crucial, especially when the children are involved. My kids, thankfully, have been resilient through this. They're sad about Maria's son, as they had grown quite fond and used to seeing him around. I've explained to them, in age-appropriate terms, that sometimes adults have disagreements and relationships change, but that we can manage these changes with compassion and respect. In conclusion, while this episode was fraught with tension and uncomfortable revelations, it has also been a period of significant growth. I've learned a lot about the importance of boundaries, the impact of our actions on our children, and the need for open, honest dialogue. Thank you again to everyone who offered their thoughts and support. Here's hoping for a calmer, more stable future. Update 3. It has been a few months since my last update, and there have been some significant developments in our situation following the breakup between my ex-husband and Maria. And after ensuring that Maria and her son started counseling, there has been a noticeable change, especially in her son's demeanor. It's been heartwarming to see, and I truly hope that they continue to find the support they need. On a more personal note, my ex-husband and I have taken some proactive steps to further solidify our co-parenting relationship and ensure we are on the same page moving forward. We have both agreed to involve any significant others in family discussions earlier to ensure everyone understands the boundaries and expectations. This decision came after several deep discussions about our past mistakes and how we can prevent similar issues in the future. My kids have adapted well over the past few months. They sometimes ask about Maria's son, as they had become quite close. I've explained to them that while he may not be around as much anymore, we can still wish him well and hope he's happy. I believe teaching them empathy and understanding regarding others' situations is crucial. As for my personal journey, this entire experience has prompted me to reflect on my own boundaries and the way I communicate them to others. It's been an enlightening and sometimes challenging process, but I feel that I'm coming out of it stronger and more aware of my needs and the needs of my children. Recently, my ex-husband shared that he has started seeing someone new. This time, he introduced her to me after just a few dates to ensure that if it becomes more serious, the transition and any interactions involving our children can be as smooth as possible. I appreciated this gesture as it showed growth and his commitment to keeping things transparent between us. This new woman, Sarah, seems very understanding of our co-parenting setup and has expressed her desire to respect my role and the boundaries we've set. We've only met a couple of times, but she appears to be genuine and respectful, which is reassuring. I'm cautiously optimistic that this new approach will prevent past tensions from reoccurring. Lastly, I have also started to explore my interests outside of just being a mom and an ex-wife. I've taken up a new hobby, pottery, which has been a wonderful creative outlet and a way to meet new people. It's important for me to model to my children that personal growth and happiness are ongoing journeys. Thank you once again to everyone who has followed along with this story and provided support and advice. Your words have been comforting and have often given me new perspectives to consider. Here's to hoping for continued peace and positive relationships in our lives. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for telling the mother of my boyfriend's son to run an upgrade on her parenting style? So, here's a bit more about me and my boyfriend. We've been together for a solid year now, and it's been great. I'm 35, and he's 32. We're both pretty settled in our lives, but we don't have any kids together. My boyfriend, though, has a cute little 4-year-old son from a previous relationship. His son lives with his mom, the ex, and my boyfriend has made it a routine to pick him up every weekend. Recently, he decided it was a good time for me to meet his son, and honestly, it went better than I expected. The kid is absolutely adorable, sweet, outgoing, and really chatty, which is fun. I've had quite a bit of practice with children because I've helped raise my nieces and nephews. I learned a lot from that experience, like patience and how important it is to communicate calmly with kids, especially when they're being challenging. I don't believe in raising my voice or getting physical. My approach is all about talking things through, which I think builds trust and teaches them to handle emotions better. This little guy, he's naturally curious, always exploring, touching, and playing with everything he can get his hands on. At first, he would sometimes break things just out of curiosity, like dismantling toys or pushing all sorts of buttons just to see what would happen. I started dealing with this by talking to him gently and explaining how things work. This has opened up a whole new world for him. Now he's full of questions like, what does this do? And why is this like that? We spend time exploring answers together, and it's actually helped a lot in reducing the many disasters around the house. However, things took a bit of a turn recently. The boy's mom, my boyfriend's ex, called me one day out of the blue. She sounded quite upset and accused me of using new age phrases and ideas on her son, which she claimed were interfering with her parenting style. For example, since he's been spending time with us, he started to use phrases like, "Don't shout, mommy, talk it out," like auntie, and whenever she starts to raise her voice, he'd say, "Okay, take a deep breath, mommy." Initially, I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to step on her toes or undermine her parenting. I was just interacting with him in a calm and constructive way, the same way I treated all kids in my life. She didn't take that well. She told me that I should go make my own kids, and then I could teach them whatever I wanted. That really hurt me. In the heat of the moment, I responded more sharply than I should have and suggested that perhaps her parenting style could use some updating. This really set her off, and now she's refusing to let her son be around me. She's even started limiting my boyfriend's access to his son, claiming that my influence is a negative interference. After discussing this with a friend, they mentioned that maybe I should have kept my thoughts to myself and let my boyfriend handle the conversation with the ex. They thought that bringing up her parenting might have been too much, and now, reflecting on it all, I feel pretty terrible. I was only trying to be helpful and positive around the boy, but it seems to have backfired, and now I'm worried about how this will affect my boyfriend's relationship with his son. It's a messy situation, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to mend things, not just for our relationship, but for the little boy caught in the middle. Am I the a-hole now? For the comments. Not the a-hole. She's being ridiculous. Assuming that there's an actual visitation agreement, she cannot unilaterally just do that. X is being pissy. This is a type that will allow a child to be destroyed just to get back at the ex for whatever reason. Of course, she is probably demonstrating all the reasons she is an ex as well. My parents divorced when I was 1 and used me to hurt each other my entire life. I can confirm that none of this behavior was going to be good for the child. I was 5, and my mom tried to use my little sister, and that to hurt my dad and essentially extort him to pay an absurd amount of money. Joke's on her, though. I moved in with my dad full-time at 11 and became an attorney because I was so angry at what she had done. Not the a-hole. OPX is being super petty, and your parenting style sounds like mine. My son is 3. He is an intelligent and curious little person trying to figure out the world. Patience is a must with small children, and you sound like a wonderful friend/stepmom. Sounds like the 4-year-old is more mature than his mother, and she doesn't like being reminded of the fact by the kid when she loses her temper. Your boyfriend needs to go to court and get a proper custody arrangement in place because his ex just deciding he doesn't get to see your son anymore, ain't it? Not the a-hole. That would be a fun one. Mother declaring that the father can't see his kid anymore because his girlfriend doesn't scream at it. Can you imagine telling the judge you want to change things because the new girlfriend is speaking to your child respectfully and gasp explains things to them? That kind of curiosity should be cultivated. OP just found a non-destructive way to do it, and it sounds like he loves it. Sounds like he also appreciates not being screamed at for something. I mean, he's freaking 4 years old. Mistakes are going to happen, and yelling or spanking doesn't teach him anything except maybe that it's okay to yell in heads when you're mad. Most judges would laugh at the ex. Last story. Am I the a-hole for deviating from my nieces and nephews' routine while we watch them, instead of speaking to my sister-in-law because I thought it was unfair? So here's the full scoop on what happened. When my husband's sister and her husband decided to take a break and go to a wedding out of state, which they extended into a vacation, this meant that we had the pleasure and challenge of hosting our niece and nephews who are 11, 9, and 8 years old for an entire week. A bit of background on my sister-in-law. She's really into following celebrity parenting tips and whatever trendy advice pops up on online blogs. We quickly began to notice that these influences might be impacting her kids' behavior in some unusual ways. The first hint that things might be a bit different with her kids came shortly after they arrived. Our niece, who's the oldest, approached us with a complaint. Our son, who's 40 and still a big kid at heart, wasn't letting her use his Nintendo Switch first. I sat down with her and explained that while the Switch is in our house, she needed to ask nicely for a turn, and ultimately it was up to our son to decide when to share it since it was his. As the week unfolded, more situations arose that highlighted the unique rules they were used to at home. For instance, when I announced it was time for the younger two kids to get ready for their baths, our niece immediately shouted, "First," and dashed off to gather her things. Later at bedtime, when I asked the kids what story they'd like to read, our niece was quick to answer, dominating the decision-making process. The following day, the kids expressed a desire to watch a TV show. When I suggested they pick something to watch together, our niece promptly declared she should choose the show without consulting her brothers. She justified her response by complaining, "Boys always pick everything." Seizing the moment to teach a valuable lesson, I explained that in our house, we make decisions together, and everyone, including her brothers, should have a say. Dinner time provided another learning opportunity. My husband was serving dinner on a first-come, first-served basis. Our son, quick on his feet, got there first. Our niece protested, declaring he needs to wait because "I should go first, girls go first." My husband patiently explained that we don't have a go-first rule at dinner. Instead, we either take turns or serve whoever gets to the kitchen first. Over the next few days, our niece continued to assert her desire to be first in everything from bath time to choosing the bedtime story. I gently reminded her that since she had gone first the previous night, it was only fair that one of her brothers should have a turn to pick first this time. She protested, insisting, "But at home, girls go first." This was clearly a rule from their house, and I took the time to explain that in our house, the rule is to share and take turns so that everyone feels equally important. The situation escalated when their parents called to check in, and our niece mentioned that we weren't following the usual rules she was accustomed to. My sister-in-law wasn't pleased when she heard this. She felt that by changing their routine, we were not respecting the environment she tried to create for her daughter to feel valued and special. I explained that she hadn't mentioned any specific rules when she asked us to keep the kids. Furthermore, I expressed my concern that these rules might not be teaching her daughter to feel valued, but rather teaching her to expect special treatment, which isn't how things generally work outside their home. After this conversation, things became a bit strained. My husband's parents came to pick up the kids the next day, and since then, the relationship between my husband and his sister has been a bit tense. So that's the whole story. It raises the question, was I wrong for not sticking to their specific girls first rule? Or should I have discussed this first with my sister-in-law? What do you think? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law is sexist and is raising your niece to be sexist as well. At least helpfully, two nephews will remember which family they can turn to when they go no contact in high school. Not the a-hole. This has nothing to do with celebrity-style parenting. It's just good old-fashioned favoritism. Not the a-hole. Yikes, that's a crazy way to raise a daughter. Her sister-in-law isn't doing her any favors. She'll be shocked when she enters the world as an adult and realizes nobody cares about her rules. Opinions, not just the daughter. What a crazy way to raise their sons. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Her thought process makes no sense. It's fine to make sure your daughter knows she's valid and special. It's definitely not okay to teach her that because she's a girl, she'll always get to be first or always get her way. You're correct. She's just teaching her to be an entitled brat. I don't know. Some people overcorrect. You'd be surprised at how many women have grown up in houses where they were second-class citizens. Doesn't make the system correct, but I can see how it came about, especially in certain cultures and corners of the world. The problem with that culture is that there are first and second-class citizens at all, not who the second-class citizens are.